All right, so today we're going to go over some of the biggest misconceptions on the medium tactical vehicle replacement, or the MTVR. So everywhere on the forums, on YouTube, I see guys talking about, the trucks come out with no windshield, no doors, whatever. And they come up with all sorts of weird and interesting stories that they've heard from people about why the trucks don't come with the doors, or don't come with the windshield and mirrors, or don't come with the entire cab top or doors. So one misconception I've heard is, they reduce it for shipping across the from the Middle East. They reduce the cab and they ship it over, and there's no room to actually bring the cab over, and they leave the cab in the Middle East. Well, to debunk that theory, the cab reduces onto the hood and is designed to go in a C-130 with the cab reduced on the hood and the doors still on the truck. So this truck, you don't even have to have bed space available for the cab to go, with the truck. The cab stays on the hood and there. The doors, you can see, have hinges. Top of the doors fold down, roll down the windshield, and those side pieces come off. They store in the cab floor, and then the whole back wall, roof, and windshield go onto the hood. The back wall you see separates by a seam. All that folds onto the hood. I believe there is a really good YouTube video on how to reduce that cab on YouTube from a nice civilian. Can't remember his name, but yeah, so you can store this in an AC-130 with the cab reduced and not have to put anything in the bed. Second all, why do they not come with doors, and what are the differences? If I remember, I'll put up the 3 different armor configurations, but the Gen 1 armor was kind of some prototype armor that they would put on the windshield, and they would replace the doors, but it wasn't wasn't really a realistic replacement. You'll see it's got a full bullet-proof windshield instead of the segmented windshields like they have now. And then the doors are going to be a little bit different. They look a little boxier, less cool. If I remember, I'll try to find a picture of that. You'll see them only really in the Middle East. I think they only had those for a few years. Then they went to the, I believe, non-reducible armor kit, which you'll see they take the windshields out and they'll be missing doors, but they'll have the cab roof and stuff, and they'll bolt the armor to the cab roof and they'll replace the doors. When they do that, though, they drill a bunch more holes in the truck. These holes are for the weapons platform. They'll drill additional holes here and additional holes here. These holes are for the weapons platform. This truck had a weapons platform on it. And then you'll have a whole bunch of holes in the back, and on the floor you'll have a whole bunch of holes. But this is a factory non-armored truck, so this is complete how it came from factory, how it's supposed to look. You also have an air ride seat, and you have a bench seat in the passenger. An armored truck, you'll have 2 rigid mounted seats, identical driver and passenger, and you'll have a center gunner's station, and you'll have a hole in the roof where the weapons platform would go. Finally, for the third type of armor, you have the reducible armor kit. So that came with its own complete roof section. So you'll see at the hinge pins, there's nothing left. The whole top of the cab is gone, doors are gone, no windshield, stuff like that. And that was a reducible armor kit. All MTVR armored trucks have a A1 designation. What is the difference between an A0 MTVR, we're going to call it, or a non-A truck, and an A1 designation? Well, very simple. A1 just means it was armor ready or armored. You can have a Mark 23 A1. It would look almost identical to this truck, but it would have a whole bunch of holes peppered in the floor, and have a whole bunch of holes peppered in the back wall, and it would have all of the holes ready to mount the armor, and it would have an armored floor from factory, but they'll take that out at auction, but it will not have any of the armor. So an A1 will look identical to this, but they'll have the armored floor. Now, an AMK truck, you can have an AMK A0 and AMK A1. AMK A1 means it was an A1 truck put to armor, or is an MK A1 armor ready truck that was armored. And you'll have a AMK A0 truck that was a MK truck just like this. You see this is a factory MK23. They'll take this truck and they'll put a non-reducible armor kit on it. So they'll cut all the holes and drill all the holes and stuff like that. And by that point, it is now a A1 truck essentially, because they've drilled all the holes, but it just did not start as an A1. People will have misconceptions that the A1 has the upgraded transmission controller. And it's not really upgraded, it's just a newer one, the Gen 4 Allison WTEC versus the Gen 3. That's also a misconception. It was just about the year that the truck was built. Additionally, the differences between the transmissions, I don't believe physically there's any differences between the valve body harness and the transmission controller and the transmission keypad. They believe those are the only differences, and also the wiring harnesses in the truck are different because they have different plugins. But what else do we have? So if you see from companies like, I'm not going to say their name, but it sounds like Idwest Ilitary, they'll say that they have a Mark 23 A1 truck for sale. And, you know, I only know of 1 or 2 Mark 23 A1s that ever came out that looked just like this, but had the armor floored in there and removed and never had the armor put on. So when they say Mark 23 A1, what they really mean is they bought an armored truck and they put either aftermarket doors on, aftermarket windshield, stuff like that, and they put it together themselves, or they bought a parts truck and converted that truck over to a full regular MK spec. Now, caveat is if they go the aftermarket route, they will not have a few things that are very important. So if we look under here, you can see I have mounts to run my inner rubber fender liners. I don't currently have them in because we were just working on the truck, but you have mounts for inner rubber fender liners. Here you'll have armored brackets that bolt in here on all of the armored trucks and most likely the converted trucks unless they unbolted them. But you'll see markings where they had clamps on these bars. They'll have big clamps that go around here, and those hold the armored brackets on there. And they also won't have your fender liner down here, which protects all of your electronics and hoses, because that was an armored plate that they took out and they never put back. You'll see the fenders will be kind of floppy down here and they don't put supports in, or if they do put supports in, you can see that they're aftermarket because the factory MTVR is supposed to look like this, where you have a full inner fender liner back here and you have those inner fender liners slide ins. Additionally, the 21,000 front axle kit was installed, which means you have stiffer riding front suspension and you have different axles and hubs, not hubs, but brake drums, different brake shoes and stuff like that. So here you can see rubber fender liner mounts and stuff like that. And we have a full cover for the exhaust and guarding. You should have a resonator. That's the only thing that's not really factory on this truck, is missing the resonator. You should also have your full rubber covers for your BII stuff. Will go in there, your wheel chocks and stuff like that. And what else am I missing? Oh yeah, if you get a truck without a windshield, you also have the mirrors cut off. Your mirror mounts were cut off of the aluminum, so you'd have to re-weld your own custom mirror mounts, or you get the Freightliner mirrors that'll bolt to the side of the cab, and they'll come up off the side of the cab rather than bolting to the top of the cab where they are from factory. That's another thing you gotta watch out for, is you gotta figure out how to remount that. Another thing is all AMK trucks came with air conditioning, or A1 trucks came with air conditioning as well. So you'll be able to see the AC condenser here has your AC lines, and it's right behind the grill. You'll also notice that there is a grill spacer plate in here. There's only, from my knowledge, there's only 2 ways to get AC on MTVR. Either A, they put an aftermarket AC kit on it, they put a factory AC kit on it that came out of auction, or B, what they did is they bought a armored truck and they just put, you know, the unarmored cab on it. And then after they did that, it has an air conditioning system and it has a cab on it. So if you see an A1 truck, it should have air conditioning. If it does not have air conditioning, that was not an A1 truck, and they're just lying to you. All right, a few more things. I just looked at my notes, remembered. On armored truck, the back, all this will be disconnected. This will be disconnected because there's armored back wall that goes on here. So this will be laying around, that'll be laying around. They usually cut your fuel lines for whatever reason. They can't get them off. Another thing is, big thing, your windshield wipers, they will not have their full range of motion. A factory truck should have a full range of motion, you know, almost like a regular car where they go all the way around. Your armored trucks, they'll only go about halfway or a third of the way. So we sell a kit that will fix that, but it's not super cheap. I think it's $250-ish on our website, but that's kind of just what it costs from the factory manufacturer, made in USA. But that makes your armored truck windshield wipers actually have their full range of motion. After you get your factory windshield wipers back to their full range of motion, you need to go into the cab. So looking into the cab, you'll, on an armored truck, have a non-air ride seat. That's your biggest giveaway. This linkage may be disconnected from factory. That linkage will actually be missing altogether on any armored truck. And then also, these mounts that hold your seat from flying forward will be cut off at the wall, and you'll have to weld on your own new mounts for your passenger seat if you convert a non-armored truck to an armored truck. Or I'm sorry, you take a parts truck to convert an armored truck. You'll be missing all of that. Here on the dash, this is the Gen 3 transmission controller. You can see it has one red number. Gen 4 will have two blue numbers. CTIS is just checking itself. Another thing is these door panels, if it was an armored truck converted, you'll have to take a really close look and look at your serial number, vehicle identification number. That number will not match your number on the frame rail there. So that's another way to know my doors were stolen off of a parts truck and put onto a armored truck and converted to an A1. Now we can see back here, there's all sorts of welded on ribbing. This is bolted on, I'm sorry, but the brackets for this are welded on. So that on an armored truck will not be there at all. So there's no way to actually put your factory liner in there unless you weld on a new tab to put on your factory inner liner. So you'll see a lot of people don't put the factory inner liners back in. That's the biggest giveaway. Hey, this was an armored truck that was converted. So is there anything wrong with an armored truck that was converted? Generally, I would say no, but it's just things you need to look out for. Armored trucks are going to be gone through by GovPlanet, and they're going to be ripped apart in multiple different ways, and you're going to have a little bit more issues. If somebody's already converted it for you, you need to look really hard at how they did it and if they did it properly to your standards, because there's a lot of people that do hack jobs and they just throw a cab on there and it's really not completely changed over to a unarmored truck. Your inner fender liners are very important for protecting all your hoses and stuff like that. Additionally, you need to just look at your tires and stuff like that. And armored trucks will also have a higher CTIS pressure setting. So your truck will ride worse from factory unless you have it reprogrammed by somebody with the Dana software and a diagnostic adapter like I had in the truck earlier. I didn't mention it, but you guys probably saw it. If you guys send in your controllers, I can reprogram them here and I can send them back to you. But basically, just know what you guys are getting into. Just know the little bit of history. These doors will never come out. We'll never be seeing piles and piles of these doors coming out in GovPlanet, because they were all scrapped in about 2009, 2010 when they started doing the armored program. So, you know, our only options are the aftermarket door stuff. So you can either get a parts truck or you can get an aftermarket door kit. Aftermarket door kits, from what I've seen, quality is halfway decent. The companies that sell them, I digress on that. You know, I've had good experiences and bad experiences with them. But just know what you guys are getting into, and more importantly, know what you guys are talking about when you buy an MTVR and you try to spread information on the internet, being like, hey, you know, this is XYZ what happened. It's like, no, the trucks were armored and they got, all the doors were scrapped, all the tops were scrapped, everything was scrapped that wasn't actually part of the armor kit. So yeah, hope you guys have a great day.